Okay, I'm going to show you some images first of all of where I was born and brought up and where I'm based at present, and then I'll explain to you why I call this the miracle that is Turris. These are all images around the Methodist Church. It's a Methodist church called East Belfast Mission that I'm employed by, and they've had a presence on the Newtownards Road. The Newtownards Road is East Belfast, and they've been there for about nearly 200 years. And it probably doesn't look like the sort of an area that would be very welcoming to Irish language or Irish culture. It's a segregated community. This is the interface between what is the Protestant Newtownards Road, where I was born and brought up, and the Catholic Short Strand. And I was born in the next street to this. Now, when I was born in the early 60s, there wasn't a peace line. We were still at peace, but in 1969, as you know, the Troubles broke out and it changed things very much. Even almost 20 years after the Good Friday Agreement, even though most places in Northern Ireland we now have peace, if you live on an interface area, well, peace didn't really come. It got better, but it didn't sort itself out totally. So there would still be low-level attacks, which now and again break into the more serious. So despite that, we have an Irish Language Centre. And we started about 6 years ago. I'm going to tell you the story about it in a minute. And you can hear they're lots of fun. And the reason that I call this the miracle that is Turris is because somebody once said if there was ever an Irish Language Centre on the Newtownards Road in East Belfast, that would be a bloody miracle. So there you are. They do happen. They do happen. I'm going to tell you the story of how it came about, because quite often people do say to me, how on earth, Linda, did you end up with an Irish Language Centre on the Newtownards Road? Because the Newtownards Road is a hard-line, loyalist, working-class area that's seen a lot of trouble over the last lot of years. And I always say, well, it was through the East Belfast Mission. It was actually through the Methodist Church. I was a member of their congregation, and that was, say, 6 years ago. I was part of the women's group, and there was a cross-community women's group. 1 week we met on the Newtownards Road, and the next week we met in the Catholic Short Strand. So we went between the two, which is a bit unheard of as well. And as well as doing poetry and all the sorts of things that women's groups do, we did a 6-week taster in the Irish language. And Hitchme and Ra Leis and Changa, I fell in love with the language. I just simply fell in love with it. I'd never had the chance to engage with it because I'm from the Protestant community. We didn't learn it in school. I didn't see any language around me. There was no prayers in our house. Well, there's no prayers in our house anyway, unfortunately. But, so there was no language for me. And then all of a sudden it came up. And I'm going to shift past this because this is for the prods, really, and I explained to them about how the language works. But I started going to an Irish Language Centre, the classes, and at the time my husband was the leader of the Progressive Unionist Party, which is a small political party in Northern Ireland that would be seen as a very loyalist working class party. My brother-in-law, Brian's brother, had been the leader of it, David Irvine. So the fact that I was doing Irish was seen as being newsworthy. It wasn't a big deal to me, but it was seen as being sort of interesting. And because of that, I ended up in a couple of newspapers. Now, I'd never been on, in the media before. My husband and my brother-in-law had. I was the one, I did the dishes and made the dinner. That was my role, And all of a sudden, there I was on the radio, Erin Radio, being interviewed about doing Irish. And I mentioned East Belfast Mission. And they were then inundated by people from their own staff and people who used their services saying, we want to go to your Irish class. And there was no Irish class. It didn't exist. It had been a 6-week taster. So they approached me and said, look, what about if we started up a class? Would you be interested in facilitating it? Now, I was going to this other class in Indrayhead, and Indrayhead was in South Belfast. So I thought, yeah, no, okay, I can go to both then, this is great. And that's what we did. Now, East Belfast Mission never advertised the class. I think they were a wee bit worried who might turn up on the night. 20 odd people turned up on the night, and we were in this wee tiny room. This is some of the people who came on the first night. This lady here is actually a member of the Alliance Party. The Alliance Party is one of the parties in Northern Ireland. It's a sort of a cross-community party, and she wanted to come down and support us. And she told me about a year later, she says, Linda, the only reason I came was I said to my husband, Jim, I better go down because sure, nobody's going to go to that. I'll have to make up the numbers, you know. It was meant to be for 10 weeks, but it just took on a life of its own. And things started to happen, as well as learning the language. We were invited places. One of the first places we were invited to was Culterland. Culterland is the Irish Language Centre in West Belfast, so on the Falls Road, which would be a very nationalist area. And what was interesting was the play was written by a Protestant man. He's from a Loyalist housing estate. It was written in English, but he had it immediately translated into Irish. He never wanted it seen in English, and it's about Loyalist paramilitaries. So we went along. The gun, by the way, is a prop from the play. It wasn't brought for protection or anything. Though a few of the people that came with us that night said, oh, I'm not going up there. Oh, I'd never been on the Falls Road in their lives, and it took a wee bit of persuading. But actually, when they got up, they said it was the best cafe they'd ever been in, and they used to get the bus up every week afterwards, you know. We walked in St. Patrick's Day parade that year. And sadly, in Northern Ireland, St. Patrick's Day is also something that's seen as belonging to the Catholic community. Is your patron saint St. Patrick here? Yes? No? 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 I've seen some St. Patrick stuff about, you know. Now, I mean, the Church of Ireland Church on the Newtownards Road is called St. Patrick's. Yet people say, oh, it's nothing to do. You know, I don't really understand. But anyway, we decided we would walk in the St. Patrick's Day parade, and we got our official name, and we walked out with a bilingual banner. And we went to cheers, and it was wonderful. So, you know, a lot of the work we're doing is about bringing people together. As well as starting to learn the language 6 years ago, I started to learn about the language. I started to read information about the Irish language and about the links to my own community, about the fact that, you know, the Presbyterian Church in Ireland in the 1830s termed the language our sweet and memorable mother tongue. The fact that during the 1840s they made it a requirement for all of their trainee ministers to have a knowledge of the language, that it was in our place names, it was in our surnames. And I was really shocked because, you know, I had never known, nobody had ever told me these things. I wasn't aware of them. And in many ways, I suppose I felt a bit stupid that I had never, you know, it's never struck me why there were these same words in our place names and that they actually had a meaning. So these were things that I wanted to share with other people. And it wasn't easy because, you know, when I started learning Irish, I thought I was a trailblazer. I thought I was the first prod to ever learn Irish, you know. And I quickly found out that wasn't true. But what I also realised that because of the troubled nature of Northern Ireland, people had went quietly into West Belfast, Protestant people, and had learned Irish, and that came back even quieter into their own communities, that hid their books, they hadn't told people they were learning Irish. I didn't want to do that. I'm not a particularly confrontational person. Now, my husband might disagree with that statement, but I don't feel I am. But I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't doing anything that I felt I had to hide. So when I went into Catholic West Belfast, you know, I was quite open about where I was from and who I was. It was never an issue. In fact, if anything, people made me more welcome. And when I came back into my own community and people said, oh, Linda, you going out on Monday night? And I said, no, I'm going to an Irish class. What? You're going where? What are you going there for? That's a Fenian thing. That's nothing to do with you. And I was constantly saying, no, sorry, hold on a minute. You don't understand. That's this, that's that, that's the other. And I suppose I sort of tired of doing that. I wanted to do it on a bigger scale. So an opportunity came up, and with Forest na Gaeilge are a cross-border funder, and I spoke to them. And I think they were very brave, and I think East Belfast Mission were very brave, because East Belfast Mission created the post of Irish Language Development Officer, the first one ever in East Belfast, believe it or not. And Forest na Gaeilge agreed to fund it. And the deputy, or his chief executive now, Sean O'Kinn, told me last year he came along to our awards evening, and I mean, we have about 150 people a week coming to classes. And Sean said to me last year, you know, he said, Linda, when we give you the money, we had a discussion and we said, look, you know, if we could get maybe 6 or 7 people on the Newtownards Road learning Irish, it'd be well worth this investment. You know, he says, never did we believe this was going to happen. So that's what happened. I gave up my job and I decided then this was going to be my work. Now, I lived behind the mission, so it was a bit worrying. I think my husband said, Linda, you need to keep your mouth shut. We're not going to have any windows if you do this. And I remember the night before I started the job on the 3rd of September 2012. I was in a local church, not East Belfast Mission, another church, and we'd had this one class running, and because I was starting the new job, we were going to start another new Total Beginners class, so I was all excited about it. And I asked the pastor, can I get up and announce our new class? And he said, certainly. And I stood up in front of a group of people the way I'm here now, and I said, now, if you want to learn Irish, we have a new class starting on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, and it's free, and you can all come. And I looked out onto a sea of very hard faces, no smiles, no nothing. Nobody approached me. And I remember going home that night thinking, oh my goodness, you know, what have I done? You know, have I done the right thing? And I got up the next morning feeling nervous, as anybody does, I suppose, starting a new job, but maybe I had a wee bit more reason than most people. Now, I'm a believer, I have a faith, so I decided I'd have a look at the daily reading for that day. And that day was September 3rd, 2012, and this was what was in the daily reading. It said, why we work. And at the bottom of it, it said, be not always wanting some other work to do, but gratefully perform the task the Lord has given you. And that no matter who pays your paycheck, you're really working for God. And, you know, and I respect and recognise that not everybody has a faith. I grew up without a faith. My family are communists, so we just didn't do that sort of thing. But I have a faith now, and it's something that has sustained me over difficult days. And for me, you know, I believe that the Lord wants reconciliation. I don't see anywhere in the Bible it's telling me to hate my neighbour. It ain't in there, you know. So we called ourselves tourists. Oh, there we go. We called ourselves tourists, which of course is journey. And it is a journey for us. It is a tourist. And it's turned out not just to be a tourist into a language that the majority of people from within the Protestant community haven't had the opportunity to engage with, but it's also turned out to be a tourist of healing and a tourist of reconciliation. I started the job in September 2012, and in November 2012 the flag protest came, and Belfast sort of went back, sort of spiraled back. East Belfast, where we're based, was the worst affected area of all. It was about a flag coming down and all sorts of trouble erupted. The protesters were out every night and blocking the roads, and there was no buses, or people weren't out and about. They were burning cars, all sorts of trouble was going on. Hearts started to harden again. You know, people went back into their silos. Things became very difficult. It affected the numbers. My numbers were growing in the classes. The numbers started to go down again. This is the front of our building on one of the nights we're based in here. So a very difficult time. We struggled on until Christmas. And then when we came back in the new year, I wasn't sure what I should do. You know, should I cancel the classes? And if I did cancel them, well, how long was I going to cancel them for? Thankfully, I didn't. I decided instead to contact this church. This is Bloomfield Presbyterian Church in East Belfast, but in a nicer area. And I remember ringing them up and saying, look, you know, I'm based in East Belfast Mission. We run evening classes, and you're aware of the trouble that's been going on. Could we move our classes to your building for a few weeks? And they said, certainly, that's not a problem. And then I said they're Irish language classes, and there was a long, long pause and a sharp intake of breath. But, you know, thankfully they said, yeah, no, that's okay. And I rang round all my learners, and I remember when we arrived that night, it was obvious that the people in Bloomfield Presbyterian were very curious about who on earth these ones were coming up from the Newtownards Road that were learning Irish. But turned out one of my learners was one of their congregations, so whenever James arrived that night, I remember said, "Oh, James, what are you doing down the night?" "I'm here to do the Irish class." "You do Irish, James? Did you know James does? Did you know James does? When did you start doing Irish, James?" "Oh, I've been at it from September." "Right, okay. Did you know James does Irish?" "Okay, my goodness." They made us very welcome. Whenever we were leaving, we paid them for the use of the rooms. And they donated the money back into our, into our project. So it was actually really, really good PR. Now, I'm always trying to engage with people within the Unionist community, and I do it in various ways. I do it in talks. This is a wee talk that I created called The Hidden History of Protestants in the Irish Language. And what I did was I took all the information that I had read about and I put it into a big PowerPoint and I took it out. So as soon as I started the job, I rang round all the men's groups and the women's groups and the church groups and the youth groups, and I introduced myself and I said, "I work for East Belfast Mission and I have this presentation and I'll come out and I'll do it free of charge." And they said, "Right, okay. And you don't charge anything, dear?" "No, absolutely not." "And what is it about?" And I said, "Well, it's about the hidden history of Protestants and the Irish language." We would not have anybody that would be interested in that sort of thing. "No, dear, we would have no audience for that." "I don't think so, no." But I'm very, well, I think determined. My husband says obsessive. So I kept pushing and I kept sort of asking. And one of the first places that I got it into was the PUP conference, the Progressive Unionist Conference that year. And it was about 100 delegates there. Went down very, very well, but it opened a lot of doors for me. And I started then getting invitations out into the community. One of the things I do in it, I tell people about the history of the language and the links to the language, but I also show them, look, it's being used by the Loyalist community. This is a paramilitary group, a Loyalist paramilitary group. This is the Shankill Road, and they use the language for their motto, Love Jerry Kaboo. You know, and I have people in the Protestant community say that language is offensive. I don't want to see it. Well, don't be putting it on your walls then. You know, you started it before I did. I also have things like I've visited Scotland and, I was in the largest Rangers club of all the Rangers club, but of course they're Gaelic speakers. So, people in the Newtownards Road, Gaelic says Catholic, it says Republican, and I'm saying no, actually, it says much more than that. Being Gaelic transcends religion, it transcends politics. We were given a lot of these pennants, and I have them all around my office. People think I'm a big Rangers fan, but I'm not. I'm a big Gaelic language fan. Again, when all the flag protests happened, one of the things that people were very struck on was, Gaelic's nothing to do with me. I'm British. I don't want anything to do with that. So one of the things I say to people, well, you need to look in your British passport, because of course your British passport contains 3 languages. Your British passport is written in English, Welsh and Gaelic, Scottish Gaelic, because Gaelic is a language of the British Isles. And you're testament to that here. People have the language here. The language is part of the Isle of Man. I work with all sorts of groups, and this is me with, they're an ex-paramilitary group. This is the UDA on the Newtownards Road, who have been very, very supportive. I also work with the Red Hand Commando, who have been very, very supportive. I work with church groups, youth groups, schools, just anybody who invites me out. I work within the nationalist community as well. Anybody who invites me out, I go and speak with. I remember this school in particular. I did a 6-week taster with the pupils, and it was one of the first schools I worked in. And the first day I went up, when I was on my way home, the principal phoned me and he said, "Linda, we've had a couple of parents on the phone," and my heart sank because I thought they were going to complain. But it was the opposite. He said, look, they're really interested. Could you start a class for parents? So we did. As well as going out and giving lectures and talks and things like that, I had to find other ways of linking in with people within the Unionist community. So one of the things I did was I wrote a little play. It's a comedy. And I called it What the Fockle. It's going to come up. And it basically tells the story. It's my husband was acting in it. I'm telling you, you can't get the staff, so you can't. And it tells the story of a Protestant woman. It's slightly biographical. Protestant woman who starts learning Irish, and her unreasonable husband. I also have an unreasonable husband, but it's just not about the language, you know. But he gets himself all worked up about it, and he says things like, I'll not be speaking any language that Gerry Adams speaks. And she says, well, I think he speaks English most of the time, doesn't he? That's got nothing to do with it. I don't want to hear a word of Irish in this house. And she says, Fockle. He says, well, now, there's no need for bad language. She says, now, Fockle is the word for word in Irish. Well, I don't want to hear fuck all in here, you know. But he has to make his own journey with the language, and by the end of the little play, he starts to realise the links to his own family and his own community. And that's what's happening. People in the Protestant community are on a journey. They are on a journey of discovering, look, it's not all about Chucky Arla. It's about the Presbyterians, it's about the Church of Ireland Church, it's about Scotland, it's about the Isle of Man. It's about the fact that this language is part and parcel of your story and who you are as well. It's the fact that we have a shared heritage and a shared history with this language. And that's what Turas has been doing for the last 6 years. It's just awakening people to that. And what I find is when you go out and tell people like that, I get the same reaction, especially from Protestant men who say, why did nobody ever tell us that? You know, if somebody had told me it like that. I remember one day I was out, I have another little talk, I call it the Dummy's Guide to Gaelic Place Names, and it's my talks are always aimed at people gan fockle, you know, without a word. So this man, after I did the little presentation, this man came over to me and he said to me, dear, see when I saw it was you, I was just going to walk out. And I just said to my wife, how, honest to goodness, what is she doing on that Newtownards Road teaching people Irish? But you see, now that I've seen that, I didn't know that about her place names. Could I come down and learn a wee bit more about that? So that's the kind of reaction and response we're having. Not with everybody, I have to admit, but with a lot of people. Our little play has been made into a film. And we now take it out and about, and my learners go out and talk about their experiences of learning Irish and the diversity of them, because about 65% of them are from the Unionist community. It started off as 99%, there's about 65% now, and about 35% of them are from the Nationalist community. And the lovely thing for us is, you know, we're not doing what community relations have to do. We don't bring, there's a lot of this in Northern Ireland where you have 10 Protestants and we have 10 Catholics, and we talk about St. Patrick's Day. So of course we have to talk about the 12th then. We talk about St. Pat, you know, oh my goodness, you know, if we talk about Ulster Scots then we talk about Irish because we mustn't make any difference. And we focus on difference. We focus on difference, you know. Well, we don't do that. What we do is we're providing language, we're providing music, we're providing dance, and people come because they're interested. So it's shared interest. Our focus is language. Our byproduct is reconciliation. We've also done a lot of work looking at the census in Northern Ireland. And if you look at the census in 1901 and 1911, you find that a number of people within the Protestant community list themselves as being Irish speakers. So we looked at our own community, and we're inner East Belfast. We found that the 32 counties of Ireland are represented by people who moved to our community at that time because we're a very industrial area. And we also found very, very little difference between Catholic people listed as being Irish speakers and Protestant people being listed as Irish speakers. So that's an ongoing work for us. That's something that we want to publicise and, again, make people aware. We do a lot of work with social media because we want to empower people so they can go on themselves. You know, not everybody wants to come to a lecture, not everybody wants to come to a talk, but Twitter, Facebook is a good way of giving people information. So Fockaballa, that would be, that's the Royal Irish Regiment's flag, and that would be a flag that would fly within loyalist areas. But again, that's an anglicised form of Irish, and people don't know that, so we have to tell them. And Shankill Road is the most loyalist road in all of Northern Ireland, but again, it's an Irish language place name. So again, we're letting people know that. Why is there more than one Shankill in Northern Ireland? Because there's more than one old church. We have 13 classes a week for all ages and abilities. We started a family class for parents and children, and that's been very successful. They made a scarecrow, and we called her Blaching. Said she's a bit of a looker. We all are in East Belfast. We put her outside, and we claimed that she was the first Irish-speaking scarecrow ever in Skegness. So nobody has contradicted it, so I think we're right. The language, as well as getting broader now, we have a very heavy base of beginners. It's also starting to deepen and strengthen as people get more and more language. They're very keen. They have Gordon tortured all the time, following him about for a wee focal. Whenever they do their Fon Yarrigage, they get really worked up about it, and they work really hard. And you know, it's just really fantastic to see. We have had people coming in, as I say, to different events and awards and things, and they are just blown away by the numbers. We've sort of created our own mythology because we've had a lot of publicity, and I'm going to talk about that in a wee minute. But because of all the publicity we had, we've been on TV a lot, we've been on the radio, we've been in the newspapers. Now, whenever our learners turn up every September when we get new beginners classes, and our new beginners classes, we maybe have about 35 people in them or more, we always ask them, why are you here to learn Irish? And this year, last September, the ones who were Protestant said, well, you know the way you have more classes happening here, Linda, than the whole of West Belfast put together. Do you know the way all the prods are learning it now? So that's why I'm here, you know. So we don't contradict anybody who says these things, you know, that's fine. People want to believe that, that's okay. So, you know, it's just changing the narrative. And also, there's a lot of stuff on social media, and I'm sure you're aware of, with the Irish Language Act at the minute, and it's a bit of a hot potato because there's a lot of people in the Unionist community who aren't for an Irish Language Act, and we are for an Irish Language Act because we feel, why can't we have parity with Scotland and with Wales, and also it'll protect the language and promote the language. So we think that's a good thing. But we know there's been a lot of sort of rumour and all sorts of things, and we're kind of constantly on social media defending the language and defending people's right to have an Irish Language Act. It's difficult at the moment. You know, not everybody who comes to our classes would be in agreement with us, and that's fine. It's also we put our heads above the parapet when we come out with things like that. And I know sometimes people have encouraged me, Linda, just stay out of things and, you know, keep your head down. And I remember when it was first brought to my attention about the Irish Language Act and, you know, what stance I should take publicly, there was part of me wanted to sort of do, oh well, you know, just we'll say nothing, you know. But I was also very aware that over the years, Unionist politicians have come to see me and they've said, Linda, you're doing a fantastic job, that's great, but they don't want to get their photograph taken with me. They don't want anybody to know they're there, you know. And I don't want to be accused of that sort of lack of integrity, because I think if you believe something, then you need to stand up, even if it's damaging to you. You need to stand up and say it. So I'm afraid that's where we're at, and it's not always been easy. It hasn't been about making easy choices, but it's about trying to do what's right. It's been trying not to get it wrong, and also being aware that there are people sitting there waiting for you to make a mistake, you know, and waiting to attack you. But, you know, I'm sure you know what that feels like. A leading member, if you just run on a couple of minutes. Next one. Leading member of the Orange Order, go back. Just go back one. Decided to have a bit of a go at us, and he told people, it was a protest up at Tweddale Avenue, and he told people that Protestants shouldn't be speaking Irish, and that made a lot of the newspapers. We were the people who were pointed out on it, and I worried. I didn't know how my learners would react to it. I didn't know where it would frighten them or what would the issue be. But actually it worked in the opposite. And here's a wee hint for you. See, if you want anything to be sold out, get it banned. Get it banned. Tell people do not go to this because they'll queue up in their hundreds. And that's exactly what happened. I got messages, I got phone calls, I got tweets, I got emails from all over the world, as well as Northern Ireland, to say, keep doing what you're doing, this is great. And lots of new people came to join the classes, and our own learner base, it really strengthened them. People we hadn't seen in weeks turned up and said, I'm here. You know, nobody's going to tell me whether or not I should be learning Irish. So it actually did us a lot of good. Whenever we started, I was based in an office with 6 other people. And we just had the classes in random rooms, so they were just public rooms. We couldn't have a book on a shelf, or we couldn't have a poster on a wall. It was also difficult for me some days because, as I said to you, I work for East Belfast Mission, we're a charity, and I had to sit and listen while my colleagues took phone calls from people who support the mission financially. And it sort of would have went, okay, you're not going to pay any more money into the mission. No dear, I'm not paying money into the Irish language, I'll not be paying money for that sort of thing. And my colleagues would have said, well, you know, your money doesn't go to the Irish language, they totally fund themselves. I'll not be paying into an organisation that supports that sort of thing. So that was difficult, you know. Eventually we got a wee bit of funding to take a part of the building for ourselves, and we now have, it's our own centre. It's only 2 classrooms and then another room that doubles up as an office. I love Cultervan and I love your new centre. I'm so jealous to aid Orem, honestly, Adrian. But we decided then we would have an opening of our few rooms, and on the night that we opened it up, I decided, who would I get to open up the rooms? Need to go back one. So I could have got a number of politicians, unionist politicians, who were supporting me. I could have got Martin O'Muller, who was the Sinn Féin Lord Mayor at the time. But instead I asked this man, and he's a man called Sam Evans. And the reason I asked Sam Evans was because Sam Evans was a member, he was a founder member of the Progressive Unionist Party in East Belfast. He lives on the Newtownards Road, he's a working class guy. And before I ever started getting involved in the Irish language, Sam wanted to learn Irish. And he didn't know where he would go. And he found An Droichead, which is an Irish language centre in South Belfast. He found them online, and he turned up one night. He got the bull by the horns, and he turned up and he went and he said, I'm here, I want to learn Irish. And they said, okay, that class is starting. Like, I'm a loyalist, I'm a Protestant, I'm from the Newtownards Road. That's okay, grab a wee seat there, Sam. And they loved Sam, and Sam loved them. And Sam's dream was that there would be Irish on the Newtownards Road. There would be Irish in his own area. And we've created that for Sam. Now, Sam's health isn't very good anymore. And that night, when we did the opening, we asked Sam to come, and Sam cut the tape. And when Sam started to talk about his love for the Irish language, now he's a hard man, Sam broke down and cried. How he did. The night after we opened up as a centre, this is the advertisement that went into the Belfast Telegraph. And the Belfast Telegraph is the big newspaper over in Northern Ireland. And we've got bandsmen here, loyalist bandsmen. And the drum says Mortis, which of course is Pride, Urher Vilfarste, East Belfast. And it said, I think it's very commendable that you're learning Irish, but no harm to you. I would change that back to Pride of East Belfast before the marching season. We think it's fine. But what we thought was, my goodness, when you're starting to influence the cartoons in the Belfast Telegraph, well, you're doing something right, you know. Another wee story I want to share with you is this one. And this is our church, this is East Belfast Mission, and this was St. Patrick's Day about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years now. And I wanted to do a prayer in Irish on St. Patrick's Day, and the mission said, yeah, no, that wasn't a problem. We took it from the Church of Ireland's prayer book, Lorna Herney Cutchina. So it was a Protestant prayer. And we put it up on the PowerPoint. We put a line in Irish and a line in English. And I asked people who came to the classes, who were also members of the congregation, because I didn't want it to be strange faces, to come up and say a line each. And then I asked the congregation to say, Malachy and Cheerna, praise the Lord. And that's how it went. It was fine. There was a few hard faces, and afterwards, you know, some people engaged with us and talked to us and asked about coming to classes. Some people walked out and, you know. But I was told afterwards that 3 ladies, not physically on the day, but 3 ladies had left the church over the head of it because they were so offended. I found that difficult. I found it difficult for a number of reasons, because I wasn't given the opportunity, I wasn't allowed the opportunity to discuss it with them or what their issue was. Also, as I said, I'm a believer, so for me, you know, to praise the Lord in any language doesn't seem offensive to me. But also, I suppose, a language that I love because of the trouble that we've had in Northern Ireland, that is how some people feel about the language. There is a hatred of the language. I was told that one of the ladies, and I'm not unsympathetic, but I was told that one of the ladies, her son had been murdered by the IRA, and that's why she hates the language. But I also, Brian and I have a friend, and I was with him recently there, and he was the principal of an Irish medium. It's an integrated Irish medium school in Donegal, where the majority of teachers are from the Church of Ireland Church. And his 2 nieces were blown up in a very famous bomb in Belfast, the Abercorn bomb, and they lost most of their limbs. So, you know, I don't know how you can take that hatred and you can pour it onto a language. It doesn't work, and I don't think that's what we should be doing. So I think, you know, we have to challenge that. And, you know, another funny story, sort of on the same vein, I remember I was up the Shankill and I was giving a talk, and there was a woman there, and she was getting herself very, she didn't know what the talk was before she came, let me tell you, and she wasn't happy when she seen what it was, and, you know, she was trying to interrupt, and when it got to the end for the question, she started, and she says, "The reason I hate the Irish language," and started to tell me about somebody's cousin's mother's sister's brother's husband who had been murdered by the IRA. And I said, "Well, you know, was it Irish speakers that murdered him? Did they speak Irish?" "Oh, I don't know." I says, "No, neither do I, but I can guarantee you they spoke English. But I don't have any bother with that language," so there we go. You know, but that's how ridiculous it can become at times, you know. We started up our own group, Carja Tourists, Friends of Tourists, because one of the things I realised was, you know, that my story was becoming the story of tourists, and I'm not tourists. You know, it's 150 people back in East Belfast. They're tourists, it's their story. So they started their own group, they've constituted, they've got charity status, and they help and they support me with my work. And, you know, someday, you know, I want tourists, when I sort of give it up and I can't go on anymore, I want tourists to be going on. I want it to grow and develop and to encourage more and more people within the Protestant community to get involved and for people to take ownership of it.
If you hear this message, wherever you stand, I'm calling every woman, calling every man. We're the generation that can't afford to wait. You just started yesterday, we're already late. We've been looking for a song to sing, search for a melody, search for someone to lead. We've been looking for the world to change. You feel the same, then go on and say, if you're out there, sing along with me. If you're out there, I'm dying to believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud. If you're out there, tomorrow's starting now.
So Shin Taurus, that's Taurus Gurmaigaf.
In the south.